My article this month in Radio Control Modeler magazine was on the third annual Futaba Grand Prix, which was held at the Briggs Cunningham Museum track in Costa Mesa, California. I think we all know the many fine contributions Futaba has made for RC car racing over the years, and again we are most happy to thank them for their sponsorship of this race. I remember when 98% of the radios in the impound area were all brown box Futabas. Then it turned to 50% brown and 50% black, with Kraft's black pistol grip radio gaining popularity. This year, the radios in the impound area were 95% black, with 75% of them being Futaba's new Magnum pistol grip radio. And when the new Futaba Magnum Junior pistol grip radio comes out shortly, the brown boxes will disappear completely. I believe this Cunningham track is the best 1/12 scale track in the country. The people who operate the world-famous Briggs Cunningham Auto Museum have been most cooperative in working with the Southern California Auto Racers Club, who ran this race. They've allowed the club to repave a portion of their parking lot and then have it roped off so no real cars can drive on it. The track is super smooth and has super high bite. The club, under the leadership of Tim and Marilyn Toland, run a super organized race. The club bought a new computerized lap counting system. Thanks to my wife Midge Husting and Dolores Case, who raised the money selling hot dogs and hamburgers at their mom's kitchen at the monthly races, and then donating all the money they made to the club for the lap counting system. All of these people deserve more thanks than we can ever give them. Thank you, guys. In the Bear Racing pits, work never stops as Randy Tenchert, Terry Ballard, and Mike Tolan get ready for the next run. Team Checkpoint leader Big Jim Greenemeyer really goes all out in his racing efforts, as you can see. The BBR team went all out for concours, with Greg Jones' #1 beautiful Alba car taking first place. Way to go, guys. Sunday, time for 2 rounds of qualifying. Jerry Case started things off with a super run of 35 laps in 8:02.8, which was the fastest time so far. Lavico had changed his RC12i car from the spring front end on Saturday night to the shock front end for Sunday, and he picked up 1.5 laps. Wow! It looked like he was headed for a TQ run when, with 30 seconds to go, he clipped the dot at the end of the straightaway and rolled over. He still turned 35 805.5, which was third overall. Tony Neisinger was the most consistently quick qualifier, with the only car with 4 35 lap times and a best of 35 808.4. Mike Tolan was also consistent with 3 35s and 1 34 lap run and a best of 35 810. But there was still 1 round to go for everyone to take their best shot. Joe couldn't do it, Lav and Tony couldn't do it, both Mikes and Frank couldn't do it. The last heat was up now, and Rick Hort was turning some lap times with his checkpoint-powered Mustang-bodied RC12i car that could do it. Lap after lap was perfect, not more than 1 inch away from any dot, but never touching a dot. It was a beautiful demonstration of precision driving. Rick turned in a TQ performance, which was a lap faster than anyone else, with a 36 809. He deserved it. A main event drivers ready for the start. From the left, Mike Hickman, Mike Lavico, Frank Killam, Randy Tenchert, Jerry Case, Joel Johnson, Bob Hayes, Mike Toland, and Rick Howard. For the A main, the cars were lined up in a grid start, which means the first and second qualifiers are in the front row, the third and fourth in the second row, and so on. This generally gets all the racers through the first corner safely and also makes qualifying, well, very important. The cars were lined up, the flag raised, and Rick Howard jumped off in the lead as expected. Johnson, Case, and Neisinger got tangled up, and Randy Tenchert found himself right behind Howard. This lasted for 2 laps until Randy tried to take the same line through the same S's as Howard and drilled a dot straight on center, sending his car off the track. Jerry Case then took over second, right behind Howard. Howard hit a dot and spun out, and Case took over the lead. 2 laps later, Case hit a dot, and Howard and Johnson got by. Howard and Johnson then went round, lap after lap, almost together. Then Howard hit a dot, and Johnson took the lead. Then Johnson hit a dot, and it looked like Howard had a sure win. But at the 7-minute mark, Howard's batteries dumped, and the field went by. Johnson now had the lead, but there was a group of 3 cars closing in on him. Bob Hayes, Tony Neisinger, and Mike Lavico were freight training around the track. It looked like it was going to be a race right down to the wire. Then with 30 seconds to go, Joel's car started to slow. Hayes took over the lead and opened it up. On the last lap, Hayes crossed the finish line 20 feet ahead of Johnson in second, who was in a dead heat finish with Tony Neisinger and Lavico a couple feet back and forth. Super close, fantastically exciting racing. Great race, guys. Where did Bob Hayes come from? Bob hadn't raced for quite a few months, and he decided he'd enter the Futaba race to have some fun. He borrowed some used tires from Mike Hickman and borrowed Mike Hickman's backup motor. He proceeded to qualify 4th fastest with a 46.806 and win the A main. Not a bad way to have some fun. Way to go, Bob. Tony Neisinger was in a photo finish for 2nd place, but he came up 1 inch short. That's gotta hurt. The one-man Trinity team, Joel Johnson, took a well-deserved 2nd place. Bob Hayes came out of semi-retirement to win the Futaba Grand Prix. Way to go, Bob. Race prep was started by Butch Dunn and run with the help of his 2 sons, Mike and Steve. Race Prep was one of the first shops to specialize in off-road cars in Southern California. They had everything the racers needed, along with an off-road track, which is really the important thing if you want to sell a lot of cars. MRC was Tamiya's distributor in the U.S., and Tamiya came out with another new car called the Grasshopper. My partner Roger Curtis was working on our all-new RC10 off-road car. He started 7 months ago in 1983. There were no computers at this time, so we had to create our drawings with paper, pencils, the erasable type of course, rulers, compasses, and in Roger's case, a slipstick too. I think most people are very good at a particular thing, and the lucky person is the one that finds what he or she is good at and then is able to make a living doing what they're good at. This is my son Curtis, who runs the machine shop at Associated. He is a machinist extraordinaire. Let me show you why I say this. As Roger got a blueprint done, he would give it to me, I would make a copy, and give it to Curtis, who would then machine an exact copy of that part, whether it was plastic, aluminum, or steel. I would also take a copy and find a good injection molding company in the case of plastic parts, or a good machine tooling company for metal parts, and a good stamping company for the chassis, which took a while. So we were all three working on different aspects of this project. What you're looking at here is serial number 1, the first ever RC10 car. This car was never raced. It was only assembled to make sure all the parts interacted correctly with corresponding parts. As Curtis completed a part, he would attach the part in its place, making sure everything fit correctly per the blueprint. Curtis hand-made every part you're looking at here, except, of course, the front wheels, the 4 tires, the servos, batteries, and motor. The hardest part was hand-making the chassis. He had to hand-make the chassis from a flat sheet of aluminum. Notice how flat and smooth and clean the outside of the chassis is. It's quite incredible. Now I'm going to give you a 2-question test. Question number 1. There's 2 identical parts missing on the car. That is easy to see here, and that were on your RC10 car. I'll give you some time to think about it. How many of you noticed the rear shocks were mounted upside down in deference to the front shock mounting? Some of you saw that. Good. Now the question is, why? I think I'm going to have to help you with this one. When I saw this on Jay Halsey's car, I asked Jay why he mounted them upside down. Jay's a free spirit, and he likes to try whatever he can. That's how you learn things. Jay said, "Gene, it actually works better. I know you're not going to believe me, but try it and you'll believe it." When I got my car and tried it, he was right. There was no question about it. It was better mounted upside down. Now back to question number 1. How many of you raised your hands and answered, there were no 2 braces from the top front of the chassis to the nose plate? You get an extra helping of dessert tonight. When we started running the car, we found out we were bending the front nose pieces back when we hit something. So Roger just added the 2 front tube braces, which cured the problem. The class is now dismissed. Futaba came out with 2 new radios, an all-new pistol grip, black radio for the RC car guys who made it their number 1 choice, as well as a new stick radio for the model airplane guys. RC Modeler Magazine, September 1984. A fine-looking commercial jet model, complete with a scale and ruler to show its weight and length. Cool. My article this month was on off-road racing. The 1984 Off-Road World Championships. The 1984 Off-Road World Championship race was held in conjunction with the SCORE Off-Road Car Show at the Anaheim Convention Center near Disneyland in Southern California. MRC Tamiya and Sanyo were the main sponsors for this event, and a great deal of thanks must go to them for their support of the RC car hobby. Before you get the impression that this event is similar to the 1/8 gas and 1/12 electric IFMAR World Championships, I believe some explanation is in order. As you probably know, all the 1/8 and 1/12 World Champion events are sanctioned and governed by IFMAR, which is composed of 3 organizations: ROAR, USA, EFRA, Europe, and JMRCA, Far East. Drivers must qualify in their own countries or areas, and then 40 drivers from each of the 3 areas participate in a World Championship race. Even having foreign driver participation does not enable a race to be called a World Championship event. Examples are the annual McCoy and Florida Winter Nationals events, which each has had as many as 15 foreign drivers, which makes the racing more exciting, but in no way implies either race is a World Championship event. As you have figured out, I do not believe in using the term World Championship too loosely. The racers affectionately call the race Lou's Race. Lou Peralta, the publisher of RC Racing News, was the promoter of this race, and although I do not believe in the name Lou gave to this race, I do believe a great deal of thanks is owed to Lou for all the hard work and effort he has put into staging this annual event. By staging it at the Score Off-Road Show, it allowed over 50,000 off-road enthusiasts to enjoy a taste of 1/10 scale electric off-road racing, and judging by the crowds in the standing room only area around the track, they really enjoyed it. This kind of exposure is important for the hobby, and Lou deserves all the credit for this event. Something that was getting a lot of testing was Novak's and Delta's new speed controls. Speed controls have been around for a long time, but they've all contained relays which have points that pit and wear, so they're not reliable enough for the heavy loads of off-road racing. But Novak's and Delta's new speed controls are all solid-state electronics with no moving parts. They're also able to transmit more power with almost no power loss, and they're a lot lighter than the standard servo with resistor and heat sinks. From the response of the drivers who use them, they worked extremely well. Saturday was time for the largest class, modified class, which allows the chassis to be modified, but a stock motor must be used, and 2-wheel or 4-wheel drive is allowed. This was the largest class with 117 entries. This was a maximum amount of entries. This is Mike Dunn on the left talking to Gil Losi Sr. Gil Jr. is busy working on his car, as is Arturo Carbonell on the right. Gil Losi Jr., running one of the 3 associated prototype RC10 2-wheel drive cars, entered in this race, turned a 22-lap qualifying run. Gil is a super smooth driver who really seems to understand what it takes to get around the track fast with the least amount of crashes possible. Nobody else in the first round was able to turn 22 laps. Quite a few other drivers were able to turn 21 laps, like Mike Geem, Jigs Garcia, Chris Alec, and Curtis Husting. Curtis had built the 3 prototype associated RC10 cars, and he had to feel pretty good about the way he was running. The next round, a few more drivers made 21 laps, like Willie Melancon and Nelson Crackey, but all eyes were on Gil Losi Jr. to see if he could go even faster. But as soon as the race started, he lost his radio. The servo seemed to work okay in the pits, so Gil changed his receiver, but he never got to complete 1 lap in his 3rd qualifying attempt due to the radio again. This is Curtis's car. Notice the orange Novak speed control on the rear graphite shock bracket. Also notice that in Orca, 7-cell battery packs were allowed. Reedy powered, of course. As soon as the word got out that Associated was coming out with an off-road car, everybody in the hobby world wanted photos and info on the car. Curtis's car made it into this Asian hobby magazine. The cars were all lined up for the modified A main. All the drivers were announced to the spectators. The cars were lined up and ready to go, except for Gil Losi Jr. He still had his radio problems. His car would not sit still on the line. He was given time to change his crystals, but this did not correct the problem. All the effort he put into this race, and now he wasn't going to be able to run. The race started without Gil. It soon turned into a 4-car race with Mike Dunn holding off Mike Geem to take the win. Ron Dyer 3 seconds behind in third, and Willie Melikonen another 4 seconds behind in fourth. Stock class champion Louis Cadillo not only won stock class, but he was also top qualifier. Sunday was open class cars. This class allows 2-wheel drive with modified motors. There were no 4-wheel drive cars able to make it in the A mains. All the drivers complained of a lack of steering. There were no practice heats due to the short show hours today, so all the 90 cars entered in this race started right off in qualifying. Fastest in the first round was Jay Halsey with his Associated RC10 car. Jay couldn't quite seem to get the right combination to get over the jumps fast in the modified class, but in this open class, Jay was flying. He had 2 rollovers and still turned 23 laps in 5:05. Gil continued to have radio problems. Curtis Husting didn't seem to be able to run fast or to be able to run for a full 5 minutes, even though he was leading all 3 of his qualifying heats when he died. We thought it was the spin controller, and the next day Bob Novak showed us what Curtis did wrong. The controller was originally adjusted correctly for the stock motor, but when Curtis installed the modified motor he needed more brakes, so he moved the electrical trim lever, which changed the endpoint on the speed control, and then the speed control never went to full power. As with anything new, it takes time to learn all the do's and don'ts. But we're learning. Mike Geem jumped into the lead with Jay Halsey right behind. After the first corner, Gil Losi Jr. was third, with Elvin Peterson all the way from Norway in fourth. Jay was taking his time looking for a way around Mike, but Mike wasn't leaving any openings. Gil was slowly closing in on both of them. Finally Jay got by Mike, but within a lap Mike passed Jay again. They swapped the lead 3 times in a very exciting race with all the spectators yelling. Finally Jay got by to take the lead, and he started pulling away. Just as Losi was ready to challenge Mike for second, he lost his steering servo and was out. Now Elvin was in third, and he was racing Mike for second. It took a few laps, but Elvin finally got by to take over second. With 2 laps to go, Jay had a 75-foot lead and holding, but then he came up on a back marker. The announcer asked the driver to move over and let the leader go by, but this driver wouldn't do it. Meanwhile, Elvin closed to 50 feet. Jay finally tried to pass the back marker, but the 2 cars got stuck together, and by the time a marshal got the cars unstuck, Elvin had the lead with 1 lap to go. Jay punched the throttle, and it didn't look like he let off for the whole lap. He finished just 5 feet behind Elvin, with Mike another 10 feet behind in third. I'm sure the crowd was all worn out from all the cheering going on in a super close race. That was a good show, guys. It must be Sunday. They're smiling. Jim Halsey on the left and son Jay had a very good Sunday. Jay qualified second and finished second in the Open main. That's Mike Reedy to the right in the background. Mike Geem on the left drove his RevTech powered Cox car to top qualifier honors in both modified and open classes and finished in third in the Open. Champion Elvin Peterson won the Open class with his Spink powered Cox car, and Jay Halsey drove his Reedy powered Associated RC10 to a second place finish. My article this month was on the popular annual McCoy race. A record 127 entries made this the biggest McCoy race ever. This yearly race shows the great amount of admiration the racers have for Dick McCoy. Hosted by the Pro Car Club and held at the popular Ranch Pit Shop track in Pomona, California, this race is always one of the three best races of the year. The McCoy race, the Nationals, and the Winter Champs in Florida are the most attended races by the racers, and the McCoy race generally has a larger entry than any other race. Besides entries from all over the USA, we were also honored to have entries from Canada and Mexico. The Delta team was here in force with half of the Midwest with them. One of the reasons everyone likes to race here is that Gil Losi keeps the track in such great shape. A newly completed large driver stand and timers area is a welcome improvement. And someone who deserves a great amount of thanks from all the racers he continually helps is Ron Paris. Every time I see Ron, he's helping someone else with their car or motor. I don't know how he has the time to go as fast with his own car as he does. Arturo Carbonell was there a week early to test a new front end on his Eagle car. He had made a double ball link upper A-arm setup for the front end. This would cut down on the amount of camber change and give the car more steering, which was something he wanted. Art is not only a great racer, he's a great guy. I've never seen him deliberately run into another car. Bill Giannis was running one of Ron Paris's Stage 3 motors, and he looked like he was one of the guys who was going to break the track record. Ralph Birch didn't get in until Thursday, and immediately was going faster than anyone. Giannis is nicknamed Ralphie the Robot, which seemed appropriate, because he never seems to make any mistakes on the track. Giannis was also trying to find some way to short-circuit the robot, possibly by finding Ralphie a girl. Good idea. Lots of fun anyway. Rick Davis from Detroit and Jack Jacobs from Detroit are two racers who I put in a special category called innovators. When we go to a race, I can't wait to see what they spent their winter months inventing. This time Rick had changed his RC500 two-wheel drive to a four-wheel drive car. Fantastic! He has a very creative mind. Rick Davis had come in on Tuesday to test his new four-wheel drive RC500, which he had just finished a couple days earlier. Rick said it ran every bit as good as the stock RC500 on Tuesday, but later in the week, when the traction got higher, he went back to a stock RC500 car. Another racer from the far northwest who came down for a week's vacation was Gary Keyes with an RC500 car. Gary had a few little problems the first couple days getting it all tuned in, but as soon as he got it working right, I figured he was sure to be one of the drivers who was going to break the track record. He was just flying around the track. Gary never stops experimenting or working to improve his car. Normally the qualifying heats are set up so that all the experts qualify together in 2 or 3 heats. But for this race they mixed everyone up, so there was only 1 or 2 experts in each heat. This way everyone had a chance to race with the experts. There were 19 qualifying heats. Through the first 16 heats, Giannis's track record of 13 laps in 4:00.1 was still safe. In the 17th heat was Gil Losi Jr., Dana Smeltzer, and Ralph Birch. But the batteries must have been low on the robot, as he only turned 13,403.7. I make it sound slow, but I just wish I could go that fast. Nobody else broke 14 laps either, so in the next round Ralph turned 14,414. It could be done after all. To give you an idea just how fast he is, he also turned 14,413 and another 14,413, and then the new record 14,410. This was almost half a lap faster than the next best time, which belonged to Bill Giannis, who turned 13,401. Next was Arturo with 13,402, then Dana Smeltzer with 13,403. 6 seconds separated second through 10th place. That's close. Master mechanic Ralph Birch Sr. does all the super pit work for his son Ralph Jr. He must be good because Ralphie is always fast. Birch's RC 500 car features a Rich Lee K&B engine with one of McCoy's new torque mufflers and an Airtronics radio. Car is built from all stock over-the-counter parts, including the graphite chassis and radio tray, belt drive, 2-speed gearbox, and OPS carburetor. Birch's body is even good enough to be a concourse contender. Ralph shot ahead in the lead with Arturo following. Giannis finally got clear of the pack and was closing in on Art. Ralph was pulling away from Art and Bill. At the first pit stop at 5 minutes, Ralph had enough of a lead that he was in and out of the pits and still had the lead. By the 10-minute mark, Ralph had lapped everyone except Art and Bill, and he was right behind them. Ralph's motor had started to richen up as it was getting broken in, so on his next pit stop, Ralph Sr. fueled the car, leaned the carburetor, and adjusted in more brakes. This almost used up Ralph's lead, but he was still in the lead, leaving the pits. Then disaster struck. Ralph spun out, leaving the pits. Giannis went by to take the lead, with Arturo following in second. Ralph spun out 5 more times before finally making it to the straightaway. Then the engine died. What happened was the tank cap didn't get shut all the way, so fuel dumped out on the brakes and tires, and then the engine leaned out because there was no tank pressure. Ralph Sr. thought the carb was too lean, so he richened it up, but now it was too rich. By the time they got the car working right, he was 15 laps down. He was really flying, but that was too many laps for even Ralphie to make up. Giannis now had the lead and was pulling away from Art. At the 20-minute mark, he had pulled up behind Art to lap him, but he didn't make an effort to pass Art. He just stayed about 5 feet behind Art. This seemed like a perfectly logical thing to do. If second place is right in front of you, it means you have a lap lead, so you're okay. However, there was somebody in the back of the pack that was now moving forward very fast. Dana Smeltzer, who had way too much steering in the beginning of the race, now had his steering rate set correctly, and he passed Bill Giannis to unlap himself. I think this woke Bill up, because when Art went a little high in the sweeper, Bill tucked inside and passed him cleanly. Bill made the turn at the end of the straightaway, but Art overshot the turn a little and tapped Bill, rolling Bill over. It was an accident, and to show it was an accidental, Art waited until a marshal turned Bill over and then started running behind Bill again. This is just something you don't see enough in racing, and Arturo is to be highly commended for this showing of sportsmanship. As Giannis was pulling away from Art, Dana was getting closer and closer to Bill. At the 35-minute mark, Dana was right behind Bill as they both pulled in for the last fuel stop. Steve Lilly gave Giannis the fastest pit stop I have ever seen. The car never came to a complete stop. I just knew the tank could not have been filled and Bill was going to run out of fuel. But the super fast pit stop gave Bill over a straightaway lead over Dana. Dana was closing that gap again, but now he was trying a little too hard and spinning out, enabling Bill to stay about 50 feet ahead. Then the announcer said, 5 seconds to go. Bill was 2 turns away from the finish. He got right before the finish line and almost came to a complete stop. But Dana closed right back up on him and he decided he better take off. I think he must have been waiting for the finish horn, but that was not the correct thing to do. By the time he realized it, he had Dana on his rear bumper, and it was the last lap. Bill went a little high in the sweeper, and Dana tucked inside. They were side by side heading towards the straightaway when they accidentally bumped. Bill spun out, and Dana found himself slowing down, waiting for Bill to get turned around. Then he realized what was happening and took off with Bill right behind. Dana crossed the finish line first for the win, with Bill close behind in second and Arturo following in third. A very exciting finish to a super race. You guys did great. The trophies are all lined up and everyone is waiting for the trophy presentations. Dick McCoy and his granddaughter Tammy present Ralph Birch Jr. with his top qualifier trophy. A good car and a super driver like Ralph Birch Jr. are the right combination to break track records. Ralph has been top qualifier in every race he's been in the last year. That's a record that I don't think will ever be beaten. McCoy champion Dana Smeltzer receives his trophy from Dick and Tammy. Dana runs McCoy engines exclusively. Dick McCoy with the winner, Dana Smeltzer, Bill Giannis, and Arturo Carbonell. My article this month in Radio Control Modeler was on the first ever Roar 1/10 Off-Road Nationals and the 1/12 Roar Nationals. The first ever Roar 1/10 Off-Road Nationals was held in Vineland, New Jersey and was staged by the South Jersey RC Racing Association. Philadelphia Channel 3 TV cameraman is recording the event, which was shown on TV that night. The South Jersey RC Racing Association, with President Carl Ford, ran both the 1/10 and 1/12 Roar Nationals. Quite an undertaking, and together with the help of Bob Rule's electronic computer lap counter, both events were run extremely well, thanks to the efforts of Carl Ford, the race director, and all the hard-working club members. The 1/10th Off-Road Nationals. The Nationals started with the 1/10th off-road events, and then the following week was the 1/12th electric events. The off-road track was located in Vineland, New Jersey, and was built at Bob Gelsey's Mustang World with sponsorship from the Nice Guys. It's a very well-designed track with a grass infield and a very strong and sturdy driver stand. The club also provided tarps for the pit area, which was certainly appreciated by the racers. Monday and Tuesday were open practice days. Associated came with 8 of their new cars for this event, but there were only 3 drivers with any experience with setting up the cars. Gil Losi Jr. had done all the early prototype testing, and then Jay Halsey, Curtis Husting, and Ron Paris got their cars. For the rest of us, this would be our first ever off-road attempt. As a matter of fact, Tony Neisinger had to use most of Monday assembling his car. For myself, Roger Curtis, and Mike Reedy, it was a 3-way battle to see who was going to keep out of the cellar. I won't tell you who lost, but his initials are M.R. It was soon apparent that the more off-road experience you had, the faster you were going. The experienced racer was able to make the correct adjustments to the car much quicker and thereby get his car going correctly sooner. Meanwhile, for the rest of us, it was a great learning experience. Off-road racing was certainly a lot of fun, much different from either gas or electric racing, but each type of racing has a special attraction. They're all 3 completely different, yet they're all a lot of fun and excitement. This RC10 has the batteries mounted left to right, uses a Novak speed control, and has yellow balloons over the shocks to keep the dust off of the shock shafts, thereby making the shocks much more reliable. Wednesday was the first day for stock class qualifying. Stock class is for 2-wheel drive cars only, with stock Yokomo motors, which were supplied by the race director. The track had been manicured the night before and was in perfect condition. Gil Losi Jr. likes to make a big effort on the first round because he knows that's when the track is best. And on his first round, he turned 14 laps in 4 minutes and 5.8 seconds, or 14,405.8. This turned out to be the top qualifier run for stock class. Gil is one of those exceptional drivers who really understands what off-road racing is all about. He doesn't look spectacular on the track because he doesn't overshoot corners or kick up any more dirt than is necessary. He just takes the most perfect line with just the right amount of throttle and makes being top qualifier look easy. This also beat the old track record by 2 full laps. Second spot went to Mike TV Game with a 14,408.3. Mike was top qualifier at the Score Off-Road Show race. Third spot went to an amazing Tony Neisinger. This was the first time he ever ran the car, and to do this well with virtually no off-road experience was remarkable. This is the Stock A main. This race had 9 California drivers plus Jim Dieter from the Midwest. The cars were lined up according to their qualifying positions, which allowed Gil Losi Jr. to take the lead with Tony Neisinger, Eustace Moore, and Mike Dunn in pursuit. Gil was a little faster and slowly started pulling away from this group. Jay Halsey started moving up, and Curtis Husting, who had started last, was soon passing cars. Jay Halsey moved up to third behind Tony Neisinger and Gil Losi Jr. Mike Dunn was in fourth and got stuck in the wall just as another car went off the track. The other driver was yelling, "Take the car off the track," and a marshal who picked up Mike's car heard this and held the car up while Mike was yelling to put it down. This dropped Mike back a couple of places. Jay pulled up behind Tony, and Tony let him go by. Jay was then closing in on Gil. Gil could see him getting closer and closer. Gil was taking the jumps at half throttle, but he decided to punch the jumps in an effort to stay ahead of Jay. This worked for a couple jumps, then Gil rolled over and Jay took the lead. Jay held the lead and took the win, with Gil second, Tony third, and Curtis fourth. Chairman Jay Halsey has a very flamboyant driving style. It appears that once the race starts, he punches the throttle and never releases it until the race is over. He not only goes very fast, he looks like he's going very fast. He's certainly exciting to watch, and I'm sure his dad Jim must get all the excitement he needs watching Jam and Jay on the track. They're certainly a super father and son team. Jam and Jay Halsey wins the first ever Roar 1/10 Off-Road Nationals, with Gil Losi Jr. TQing and finishing second, and Tony Neisinger in his first ever off-road race finishing third. Wow! And Curtis Husting taking fourth. RC10s took the top 4 places. You guys did awesome. Yes, as you can see, Gil really does work on his own Yokomo 4-wheel drive car. Modified class qualifying. Now it was time for the modified class. The modified class allows either 2-wheel or 4-wheel drive cars and modified motors. The early favorites in this class had to be Gil Losi Sr. with his 4-wheel drive Yokomo car and Eustace Moore with his scratch-built MIP 4-wheel drive car. Both of these drivers have been doing extremely well in Southern California. It was going to be interesting to see if the 2-wheel drive cars had a chance with the 4-wheel drive cars. After the first day's qualifying, Gil Losi Jr. had top qualifier position once again with a 15.412.2. Right behind him was Eustace Moore with 15.412.7, then Mike Eam with 15.415.8, then Gil Losi Sr. with 15.416.7, then Jay Halsey at 15.413. The Modified A Main. This was the continuing battle between the 2-wheel drive cars and the 4-wheel drive cars. The cars were lined up, the horn sounded, and the 4-minute race was underway. I was marshalling in the first corner, and when the bumping was done, Jay Halsey was stuck in the wall while the rest of the field was gone. I remember thinking that Jay's chances were now slim or none as I pulled his car off the boards. Meanwhile, Jim Dieter has his 4-wheel drive Hirobo car out in the lead. Gil Losi Jr. was in second, Eustace Moore third, and Jerry Case fourth. Gil had to change the speed control before the start of the main, and he apparently couldn't get it set correctly because he didn't seem to have the speed that he had earlier. Dieter continued with the lead, with Eustace now in second and Case third. Pops Losey was coming on fast, and he soon passed Case and was right behind Eustace. Just as Pops was about to pass Eustace, Gil touched the inside wall and popped the linkage off the front end. Meanwhile, Jay Halsey is flying around the track. He passes Case and is closing in on Eustace. At the 3-minute mark, Dieter takes a jump, and when the car lands, the front drive shaft falls out and he's out. Eustace now has a lead, but Jay is right on his tail. Jay is looking for a place to pass, but Eustace is holding a tight line. Then, after 2 laps, Eustace is a little wide after coming off a jump, and Jay dives to the inside. The 2 cars go into the corner together and bump. Eustace spins out, and Jay takes the lead. On the next lap, Eustace's motor slips, and Mike Geem finishes second, with Jerry Case third and Tony Neisinger fourth. Jammin' Jay does the impossible, comes from dead last to win his second Nationals title. The races certainly weren't given to him. He had to earn them. Way to go, Jay. The amazing Jammin' Jay Halsey makes it a double win by also winning the modified class against 2- and 4-wheel drive cars with his RC10 car powered by Reedy horsepower. You're awesome, Jay. Mike Geem took second with his Cox Scorpion car, and Jerry Case followed in third with his MIP car. Great race, all you guys. Royal 112th Electric Nationals. The 112th track was about 20 miles away from the 110th track in Williamstown, New Jersey, and was sponsored by Sanyo. This track was a little bigger than most outdoor tracks, but it was super smooth with excellent traction and is what I would call a fun track to drive. As this was the year of the 112th World Championships in Denmark, the majority of the 112th racers passed up the Nationals to prepare for Denmark. I believe only 3 of the 26 drivers going to the World Championships went to the Nationals: Bud Bartos, Terry Rott, and Frank Killam. Mike Reedy and I went to the 112th Nationals for the first day of practice and returned home on the second day of practice. This is the Stock A main. Because I didn't attend the full week of the 112th Nationals, I can't give as full a report as I would like to. However, from the time I spent there, it was apparent that Arturo Carbonell and Joel Johnson would be the ones to beat. If I had to pick the favorite on the first day, it would have to be Art. He was driving the perfect line, as usual, not hitting or even touching a dot, and running 9 minutes. Joel was getting around the track as fast as Art, without making any mistakes either, but he could only run 7 minutes. I'm sure that problem would be corrected as soon as Ernie Provetti arrived. The weather was in the low to high 80s during the 110th Nationals, and I was told it was in the low to high 90s with very high humidity and rain during the 112th Nationals. I'm sorry I can't give a more complete report, but I am including the official results. Joel adds another win to his long list. Bob Light followed in second. Terry Rott's on a roll, taking a strong third-place finish. All you guys did great. We had a chance to go on an early show on Sunday morning on NBC to show off some 1/12 scale electric racing. I would much rather have had them come out to one of our 1/12 races to show how exciting they are. But you have to take what you can get. So my son Curtis and my daughter Julie, who was racing with my wife Midge as Killer and Killer 2, joined the adventure.
Has become a world champion doing just that. World champion in car racing?
Well, it's model car racing. We have been world champions in 1/12 scale and 1/8 scale, so we're very proud of that fact. That was a big accomplishment for us and for the United States. This is a worldwide hobby, so when we have world championships, they're true world championships. We ran 2 in this country, 1 in Geneva in Switzerland, and we just came back from Carnu, France in July, where the last World Championships was. So it's a very popular sport all around the world, and it's growing.
What people won't do to have fun, huh?
Well,
Got special transmissions, and you can get certain extras on them and all of that, accessory items on them. What kinds of things would, say, these cars that we're racing have on them?
Okay, these particular cars are the most simplistic type. They have a differential like a real car does. They have steering left and right, as you can see. They have full throttle response, so you can make the car go from 1 mile an hour up to 35 miles an hour. And on the gas cars, we have 4-wheel independent suspension. We have dual disc brakes, 2-speed automatic transmissions, automatic clutch, and we've run 24-hour enduro races with them. So it's a more sophisticated thing.
Well, they're really spiffy-do little cars. Now, are they made out of plexiglass or plastic or something?
The body itself is made out of Lexan, which is the strongest type plastic that's made, so they can take a very good crash without really hurting the car.
What kind of major events do you have coming up worldwide?
This year, in August, we're going to Denmark for the World Championships for these cars here that you see now, and there'll be competitors from all around the world in Denmark going for the World Championships.
What would these cars be called?
These are called 1/12 scale electric road race cars. And then we have 1/8 scale, and then there's a new class that's just becoming very popular. There's the 1/10 off-road cars, which are like dune buggies, and it's very popular because you can run them any place. You don't need a special track. You can run them in the dirt and make your own jumps, and it's a very fast-growing sport.
I think a lot of parents like myself have kind of shied away from these little guys because you really do need some space. You can't just run these around your living room.
Not the living room, but you can run them. You can run them out in the street in front of your house. You can run them at the school parking lot. Any place like that where it generally takes 2 people to get out and have some fun or more. Like we just came back from a race in Cleveland. There was 333 entries. So it's very big. It's very, yes.
Now, you also have gas-powered little cars.
Yes, they're bigger than these, and they go up to 75 miles an hour.
That's pretty fast.
It's very
faster
fast.
than I drive. It's faster than it's legal in the state of California,
Yes, and now
actually.
you have to control those cars at that speed from a distance of about 175 feet away, which it takes a great deal
now,
of skill.
Now, we have some other little guys over here. They're so cute. And we're going to take a look at those and show those to our viewers.
Okay.
What are the models that we have on our platform here? They're going to flip back over there. There they are.
Okay, the number 1 car, the yellow body car, that is like a 1/8 gas car. That's a model of the cars that go 75 miles an hour. They have full independent suspension, coil-over shock suspension, 2-speed automatic transmissions, automatic clutch, dual disc brake, and we just came back from the World Championships with those cars in Carnu, France last July. And that's the model of the Porsche 935, which is a very popular car in all the different kinds of racing.
Very snazzy car.
Oh, it is. And the car now that you're looking at is a version of the off-road 1/10 scale electric-powered car, which is the fastest-growing new hobby that there is. And then the car behind it is these electric 1/12 scale powered cars, which you're seeing on the that we're running here now.
Well, it looks like a great deal of fun, Gene, and I want to thank you for joining us today and showing us your little electric-powered cars and telling us about your gas-powered cars and about all the competitions. And who would have thunk it, huh?
Yeah, not me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up next on Sunday, the rising popularity of BMX bicycling. So stay with us.
When we finally received our production parts for our RC-10 car, Curtis assembled the car, and I called Chris Chan, who did our ads, to come over. When Chris came over, I gave him the completed chassis and a clear body and wing. Chris told me on the phone that he wanted to paint and detail the body, which I thought was great. So I told Chris basically what we wanted to see in the ad, which was a realistic paint scheme with the car in an action setting, and then some of the other ad details. This is the car Chris did. Fantastic. It looked like a real off-road car. This is the ad Chris did. Up to this time, all of the buggies were coming from Japan. Import Fighter made a strong statement, and the car flying through the air was exactly what we wanted. We ran this ad seemingly forever. RC Modeler Magazine, February 1985. RC cars were becoming a larger part of the radio manufacturer's business, as is shown in this Futaba ad. 4 radios, all with RC cars, in RC Modeler Magazine, a model airplane magazine. Luckily, the most popular transmitter, the pistol grip, was shown with our new RC-10 car. Thanks, Futaba. My article this month in RCM was the 1/12 World Championship in Denmark. It was just a short 2 years ago that the first 1/12 World Championships were held in Anaheim, California. Kent Clausen was the first 1/12 stock class world champion, and Arturo Carbonell the first 1/12 modified class world champion. The Americans dominated the 1982 championships by taking top qualifying positions in both classes, winning both classes, and having 17 out of 20 drivers in the top 20. But 1984 wouldn't be that easy. Herning, Denmark, was the location of the second World Championships for 1/12 electric cars. This is one of the rooms of the Congress Hall where the super carpeted track was laid out. The second room of the Congress Hall was used as a pit area. There was more than enough room for everyone to have a table space. Frank Killam, along with Mike Tolan, did some exciting announcing for the fans. A very sophisticated lap counter scoring system was used. The new AMB electronic lap counting system would be used for this World Championship. There would be no missed laps or incorrect times. All cars were fitted with a 1" by 1" transmitter every time they picked their driving transmitters up to run. This 1" by 1" transmitter was attached to the underside of the body with a stub that protruded up through the body and quickly and easily attached with a body clip in less than 5 seconds. This transmitter signal was then sent through wires which were taped across the track at the finish line. Each lap was recorded to 1/10 of a second. At the end of each race, a complete printout sheet was posted so each driver would see the exact laps and time he turned, where he finished in that heat, and then where he finished overall. The bulk of this work was done by Bjorn and Evie Karstens, the parents of Hendrik Karstens, and many others who deserve a great deal of thanks for their work. All in all, a perfect track facility and scoring equipment for a World Championship event. 28 American drivers were entered in this event, with the rest of the 120 drivers from all the free countries in Europe, as well as Japan, Australia, Argentina, and South Africa. A group of 14 of us left the Los Angeles airport for an 11-hour flight to Copenhagen. Mike Reedy was kept busy for 2 solid weeks helping everyone with their motor problems. Monday, everyone slept in and arrived at the track about noon for open practice. It was easy to see the racers who were used to racing on carpet and those who were not. The fastest of our USA group was Jim Busby, and he wasn't anywhere near the fastest overall. The man everyone was chasing was Andy Dobson from England, who obviously races on carpet. Everyone was busy trying to find the best chassis setup for the carpet. The track closed at 10 p.m. Most guys were trying modified motors to get the correct battery, gearing, and car combination sorted out. We were getting a little faster, but we had a long ways to go. The next 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, were open and then controlled practice days. More and more of our group started to get their cars dialed in to carpet racing. We had to learn a lot in a short time. The carpet itself was good, but it changed every day. It was a new carpet, and day by day it got matted down tighter, and more tire traction got added and carried around the track. So every day the track itself was better than the day before. Sunday was the first day of stock class qualifying. The racers were divided into 2 groups, A and B. The A group qualified in the morning and the B group in the afternoon. The next day the order was reversed. Mike Reedy was at the track at 8 a.m. and was busy all day helping guys to get their stock motors broken in. After the combined first round qualifying was over, Nigel Hale, who races on carpet in England, was leading the way with 32 laps at 8 minutes flat. Next was Tony Wells, also from England, with 32 laps and 17.2. In the second round, Andy Dobson from England turned 32 in 04.3. Bud Bartos, USA, did 32.04.4. Kent Clausen, USA, 32.05.5. And Mike Lavico, USA, 32.06. 4 cars within 2 seconds. You don't get much closer than that. You'll never find much closer racing than this. In the third round, Kent Clausen with 32.01.3 and Christian Kyle from Germany at 32.01.9 took over second and third spots. Monday was the last day of qualifying. Bud Bartos raised the time to 33.13.3. Bud had one of those stock motors that everyone was looking for. Everyone else was cutting the dots within 1 to 2 inches. Bud was able to stay 6 inches away from the dots and make his time up in the straights. Everyone was given 1 stock motor by the officials, and then they were allowed to buy 2 more. Some got good motors, others got 3 puppy dogs, as those Bowsers were called. There were some awful good racers who were down a ways on the list because they were really down on power. Round 5. Ken Clausen was going for it. The cars in the qualifying heats were lined up side by side at the start of the straightaway. You had to go punch down the straightaway and then into a 100-degree turn at the end of the straight. You had to get through this corner in first place to get a good time. This obviously wasn't that easy to do, and most racers found themselves in the wall at the first corner. But Clausen made it through clean, and for the next 8 minutes he was never more than 2 inches away from the dots. He used the same flowing lines that he used to be top qualifier in the 1982 World Championships. And at the end of his run, he turned 33:11.6 to earn top qualifier honors again. That's not easy to do in World Championship competition. Congratulations, Kent. You deserved it. In the final round, Nigel Hale improved his time to 33:13 to take third spot, and Ralph Birch Jr. turned 33:14 to take the fourth sit-out spot. Ralph was having his problems getting the car right in the first 5 rounds, but he did it in the last round. Stock A main. The drivers who wanted practice time before the A main were allowed to run. Then the drivers were introduced, pictures taken, and the cars were lined up for the start. The mains were grid starts with Kent Clausen and Bud Bartos in the first row, Nigel Hale and Ralph Birch Jr. in the second row, and so on. The red light came on, and about 5 seconds later the green light came on and the race was underway. Clausen and Bartos got to the first corner together. They tangled, and Clausen was off the track and to the wall. By the time Bartos had gotten his car straightened out, Nigel Hale had taken the lead, with Mickey Booth in second and Ralph Birch Jr. in third. With his super stock rocket ship, Bartos started closing on Birch, and soon he was right on his tail. Bartos didn't waste any time, and the next corner dove to the inside, and Birch ended up in the wall as Bartos took over third. In a couple minutes Bartos was right behind Booth, and another nudge sent Booth into the boards. Bartos was now closing in on Hale. He had more than enough power to pass cleanly, and the large crowd was anxiously waiting to see how Bartos was going to pass. This time he took his time and waited for the right spot and passed Hale cleanly, and the crowd showed their approval with a loud applause. But Bartos went on to take the checkered flag and win the stock class championship. Bud's Parma car features Novak receiver and servos and Sanyo batteries. Bud Bartos, 112 stock class world champion. Congratulations, Bud. Bud Bartos in the center is the stock class world champion. Second place was Nigel Hale on the left, with Mickey Booth taking third, both from England. Everyone was there trying to win the big one, but there was a lot of side duels going on too. Mike Lavico and Kent Clausen were both trying to outdo each other. Kent was top qualifier in the stock class. Fastest man at the event was Christian Kyle from Germany, who was top qualifier in the modified class. At this point in time, Christian Kyle from Germany was just learning about RC cars. A few years later, he became our German distributor. Way to go, Christian. Christian's associated RC12i car used a shock front suspension, Novak receiver and servos, Sanyo batteries, green tires with a TOJ body. Ralph Sr. and Ralph Birch Jr. trying to figure out this carpet type racing. I think I see some American drivers sneaking in this photo of the English team. It looks like Terry Rott found a new friend. There was always people around Lavico's table. Kent Clausen busy working on his car. The Japanese team also hard at work. Wednesday was a controlled practice day for modified. Everybody got to make 3 ones to sort out their modified combinations. Ritty was busy all day long trying to make everybody happy, which is impossible, but he never quits trying. It seemed every motor Christian Kyle tried was a rocket. There was another racer who never did have enough power, so Mike took the motor directly out of Christian's car and put it in this other racer's car. His car was still slow. He obviously had a problem which wasn't the motor's fault. He finally rewired the whole car, then he was going fast. Thursday was the first day of modified qualifying. Mike Lavico showed everyone the fast way around in the first round by turning 33.02. Close behind was Finn Gerso with 33.05, then Bud Bartos 33.07, and Kent Clausen 33.09. Finn Gerso lowered his time to 33.04 in the second round. Chris Arnolo was right behind with 33.05, and Tony Wells followed with 33.07. Mike Lavico bumped his time up to 34.23 in the third round. Kent Clausen followed with 33.03, and Mickey Booth was close behind with 33.04. Friday was the final round of qualifying. Mike Tolan started things off by turning 33.00.5, just missing 34 laps by half a second. Christian Kyle was next with 33.03, then Johan Klyer 33.04.4, and Junichi Koma from Japan 33.04.9. When Koma turned his time, everyone gave him a warm round of applause. The Japanese were driving very good, but they seemed to have trouble lasting 8 minutes. I believe most of the races in Japan have been shorter because they get as many as 300 racers, so they must save time by shortening races. Something that was really great at both of the 1/12 World Championships is that all the racers between countries were very friendly towards each other. In the fifth round, Finn Gerso led the way with a super 34.15.8 run. Lavico followed with a 33.01 and Terry Rott at 33.06. In the last round, Andy Dobson turned 33.02.1, just edging out Ken Clausen with 33.02.6. But it was Christian Kyle who finally put it all together to take top qualifier honors with a picture-perfect run of 34.13.6. I timed most of the laps Christian turned during the 2 weeks. He was consistently faster than anyone else. His car was box stock, not even lightened. He was using the shock front end, which he has mastered on tuning. As the track changed, he changed the spring and shock rate to suit the track. He is certainly a master at tuning the chassis, which to me is super important. Christian has only run in 2 big races, so his racing experience is still improving. Lavico said as soon as Christian learns how to pass, he's going to be awesome. He's close to awesome now. Modified A main. The drivers were introduced as everyone took pictures. The cars lined up, the green light came on, and everyone was gone. The first corner, the race was on. Christian Kyle lost. He was hit and was dropped back. Lavico and Tolan both got hit and were sideways on the straight. Tony Neisiger punched down the straightaway, saw cars going everywhere, slowed down, then punched through an opening and took the lead, all in a split second. Johann Klyer, who had started alongside Tony, was now second, with Kent Clausen third. Kent was soon behind Klyer and passed him to take over second. Finn Gerso was now third, with Bud Bartos fourth. Meanwhile, Andy Dobson was flying. He passed Bartos, and before long he was behind Finn. Finn was going fast, but Dobson got by. Tony Neisiger continued to lead, but Kent Clausen was inching closer and closer. Then Kent just touched the dot, and the car went up on its side and just sat there. Dobson, with Finn 5 feet behind, went by Kent. On the way to the track that morning, Tony had said, "Gene, I know I have a chance to win today." I'm sure every driver had that feeling, but Tony is not one to talk about such things. I think what he meant was he finally got his car working to his liking, and now it was all up to him. In his semifinal, he had geared to make sure he'd finish strong, but for the main, he upped the gearing and went for it all. His plan was not to hit anything for 8 minutes. Well, so far Tony's plan was working, but at the 5-minute mark, Dobson, with Finn still 5 feet behind, had closed to within 20 feet of Tony. It looked as if Dobson could keep gaining on Tony. It could be a photo finish. Then at 6 minutes, Dobson couldn't close up on Tony anymore. They were holding their positions on the track. It was a question of who might hit something or whose batteries would dump first. Tony was cutting the dots within an inch and still not touching them. Then at 7 minutes, Tony had the power advantage and slowly started pulling away from Dobson. Tony went on to win, with Dobson 3 seconds back in second, and Finn only half a second behind Dobson. Bud Bartos won the race for fourth by 1 second over Kent Clausen. A very exciting display of precision driving by all the racers. You guys did awesome. Tony's associated 12i car features Novak receiver, Futaba servos, spring front end, Sanyo batteries, green dot tires with TOJ body. Tony's bodies are always traditionally black, which work out good on this light track. Tony Neisiger wins the 1/12 Modified World Championship. Andy Dobson on the left takes second, with Finn Gerso. All three of these racers were quite fast. Although Tony had a cold, I don't think he felt it as he was standing on the stage with his magnum of champagne as our national anthem was being played. Tony Neisiger, the 1984 1/12 scale modified class world champion. Congratulations, Tony. Wow. Radio Control Modeler Magazine, March 1985. It appears the models are getting better all the time. The airplanes, I mean, you know. My article this month was on the 1984 Roar 1/8 Gas Nationals, which were held in Montreal, Canada. The track was located at the Olympic Park. For 1984, the Roar 1/8 Gas Nationals actually left the country, but we didn't go far. Montreal, Canada was the site chosen for the Nationals. The 1/10th Off-Road and 1/12th Electric Nationals were held in New Jersey. Canada is a member of Roar, and Montreal won the bid to hold the Gas Nationals. I was very pleasantly surprised by the city of Montreal, a very beautiful and clean city with exceptionally friendly people. The track was located right in the midst of the Montreal Olympic Park. It was truly awe-inspiring to be at the track, and no matter which direction you looked, you were seeing the beautiful ultra-modern Olympic Stadium or arenas. The Montreal Auto Radio Control Club, with its president, Jean-Claude Knoll, did everything to make the Nationals as good as possible. They had our new Roar president, Joe Werner, help run the race with the invaluable help of Bob Rule's lap counting printout computer. Joe did run a super smooth race with everything on time. We even made up for a couple rain delays and managed to have enough time for a couple extra rounds of Can-Am qualifying. Long live the Pan class. At least Dennis Harris feels this way, as he won the GT Pan class. Dennis races with the Detroit RC Car Club. Ralph Birch Sr. did all the work on Ralph Jr.'s RC 500 cars. Ralph Jr. must have liked the car because he went out and TQ'd the GT class. This is a super two-man team. Ralph Birch TQ'd and then went out and won the GT class. Just another day at the office for Ralph. Way to go, Ralph. Arturo Carbonell was right up there, as usual. Good going, Art. Rich Lee followed in third place. Rich is another great driver who is always somewhere near the top. Ralph Birch Jr. started off the Can-Am suspension class by taking another top qualifier trophy. He's in a class by himself. A main Can-Am suspension class. This was a main event day, and they were selling tickets for 2 grandstands, which were both full by noon. It always kind of amazes me when I see this. The drivers were introduced to the crowd, pictures were taken, and we were ready to race. The cars were lined up on the straightaway according to qualifying, with Ralph and Art in the first row, but in the first corner, Ralph and Art both got bumped, and Paul Dion took the lead. Paul lives in Southern California now, but he came from Montreal last year, so this was his home track, and he was going for it. Rich Potempa got through to take second, with Dana close behind in third, and Art fourth. By the time I got to the first corner, Ralph had been hit by a second car and was turning around right in front of me, and I hit him, again dropping him to last place. He was now half a lap down to the leader, but it wasn't long before he passed me like I was parked. So I knew he was on his way. Art passed Potempa to take over third, and then Dana and Art both passed Dion. Dana and Art raced together until the second pit stop, when Ralph passed them both to take over the lead. By the next pit stop, Ralph had a lap lead, and it was increasing every minute. Arturo then started to have problems with his steering servo, and after a few pit stops to correct the problem, he finally had to drop out. Ralph continued to pull away, leaving everyone else to race for second place. Dana was holding on to second, with Dion in third, Rick Davis fourth, and I was in fifth. My race plan was a simple one, to show a great deal of respect for the two corners on the track that were breaking other cars in two, and to avoid as many crashes as possible, which leads to the same problems. So far, my plan was working just fine, as I had moved from 10th to 5th place. Then Rick Davis had to make a pit stop to tighten up his differential. He had loosened it up to help his car in the slippery parts of the track, but it was too loose. That extra pit stop moved me to 4th. Then Paul Dion, who looked like he was on a 125-lap qualifying run, wore out his rear tires and had to pit for a tire change. This moved me up to 3rd. Meanwhile, Ralph was flying, probably going faster in relation to the other cars than he's ever gone before. Normally, when a faster car is going to pass me, I can see him coming for a few laps. They'll gain about 10 to 20 feet a lap. I know exactly when he'll catch me and exactly where to move over and let him by. But with Birch, it's different. I'll see him coming up out of the corner of my eye about 100 feet back. Then I'll start to figure a good place to let him by, probably about 4 corners ahead somewhere. But then, boom! While I'm still trying to figure out the best part for him to pass, he's already gone by. And that's not the worst part. He's doing this to all the drivers every 20 laps. So much for him. Let's worry about 2nd spot. It looks like Dana's too far ahead, so right now I'd better worry about my 3rd place spot, because now I can see Rick Davis getting closer and closer. We're getting down to the last few laps, and I'm not sure if I can hold Rick off or not. Nope, he just went by to take 3rd. And now I can see Dion getting closer. Down to the last lap, and Dion goes by to take 4th. Good, close, exciting racing for 3rd place anyway. We're going to have to put Birch in a class by himself. I don't know who has a chance to beat him. At the age of 57, and finishing with this fast group of racers, when I was old enough to be their dads, I felt like I finished first in my category. Great fun. Ralph Birch Jr. on the left wins another Roar Championship, with Dana Smeltzer following in 2nd place, and Rick Davis always right up there to take 3rd. Congratulations, guys. RC Modeler Magazine, April 1985. I like pink. My article this month was on the CRP Challenge off-road race at the Ranch Pit Shop track in Pomona, California. This was actually the 2nd annual CRP Challenge race. The first one, last year, was so much fun everyone wanted to do it again. CRP headman Mike Toby came up with the idea of having an invitational class along with the regular production, stock, and modified classes. Mike made a list of who he considered to be the top 16 off-road racers in Southern California and invited them to participate in the invitational class. The rest of the classes were open to the first 140 entries, which immediately filled up. As was last year's race, this race was held at the Ranch Pit Shop track in Pomona, but Gil Losi Sr. made some changes to the track for this race. For one thing, the track would be run backwards, so the local racers wouldn't have any advantage. As this was my first off-road race here, I didn't know backwards from forwards, so this was no problem for me. The big problem for everyone was the new triple jump. Nobody could clear all 3 jumps because there wasn't enough room to get up enough speed to do this. Less than half the cars could even make a double jump. I was happy when I found out my car could make the double jump quite easily, but more important, it could do it consistently with a perfect landing 19 out of 20 times. The cars that missed went nose first into the second jump and stopped dead on the track. This is why the majority of the guys simply drove over the jumps instead of trying to jump them. It was slower but more predictable. Bill Campbell and Art Carbonell from Delta came to race and show off their new electronic speed controllers and special parts for Yokomo cars. I ran one of their Delta speed controllers in my car the whole weekend with no problems, not even the smallest glitch. They're on the right track. Cindy Slick, on the left, won the production class with Tony Day Phillips second and Eric Linder third in a close, exciting race. Stock class qualifying. In the stock class, Chad Cummings, with his RC10 car, had a strong hold on the top qualifier position. Chad had the best times right from the early rounds. In the last round, he got a perfect start, and I was able to sit right on his tail with my RC10. Because the two cars handled exactly the same, I knew where he was going to go, and I could follow him quite closely without having to worry about me running over him. Chad took the top qualifier spot with this run, and I was exactly 2 feet behind him to take second spot. I couldn't believe this. The Stock A main. For the mains, grid starts are used, meaning the cars are lined up 2 by 2 according to how you qualified. I was on the front row alongside TQ Chad Cummings. At the sound of the horn, Chad took the lead and I was right behind him, and I thought, great, just like qualifying. We ran around the sweeper down the straightaway. Chad slowed to make the tight right-hander, and I slowed so I could make it without hitting Chad. However, the third place car never came close to slowing and hit and spun me out. By the time 2 other cars hit me, I had gone from second to last. I started passing some cars, moving up, but one car in particular took me 3 times to pass. I take my time, find a safe spot to pass, get by, and then get drilled. By the time I finally got by, I ran out of time. With a 4-minute race, you don't have time for this. In the meantime, Chad was pulling away from the field. Vince Ito was in second, chasing Chad. Randy Tenchert was passing cars and had moved up to third, but there was only 1 lap left. Then Vince got stuck on the triple jump, and Randy got by to take second, with Chad taking the checkered flag. Chad Cummings on the left TQ'd and then ran away with the stock class. Randy Tenchert took over second place on the last lap, with Vince Ito taking third. Modified class qualifying. In the modified class, Art Carbonell was in a class by himself. He easily took TQ honors with his Delta modified Yokomo car. For this race, the 2-wheel drive and the 4-wheel drive cars ran together in a modified class. But on this track, the 4-wheel drive cars had an advantage on the 2-wheel drive cars. For 1985, Roy will have a separate 2-wheel drive modified class and a separate 4-wheel drive modified class. This will even out the racing better. Way to go, Roar. Modified A main. Art Carbonell took off in the lead in this race, and he was just simply gone. Within 2 laps he had opened up a full straightaway lead. There was nobody else that was going to catch him. Then, it happened. He blew a motor, and the car stopped. Art said one of the wires must have lifted. Derek McDonald then took over first with his checkpoint-powered Yokomo car. Derek held on to take the win, with a hard-charging Bob Novak taking second and Dennis Taylor finishing third. Derek McDonald, on the left, held on to win the modified class over a hard-charging Bob Novak in second, with Dennis Taylor in third. Invitational A Main. This was it, the big one. Everyone knew it was going to be a duel between Mike Dunn and Gil Losi Jr. When the horn sounded, Gil got a slight lead, but Mike was right on his bumper. The two cars were very close to the same speed. For 2 laps they stayed that way, then on the 3rd lap, Gil wanted to get a little further ahead. He had been driving over the triple jump, but now he decided to jump it. Big mistake. He didn't make it and rolled over. Mike took the lead. It took Gil 3 laps to catch back up to Mike. Mike saw him getting closer and closer, and when he saw Gil on his bumper, he figured he had to try something. Mike tried to jump the triple jump. Another big mistake. He rolled over, and now Gil had retaken the lead. Now Mike had to try to catch Gil. But that wasn't his only problem. Gil Losi Sr. was now closing in on him. Losi Jr. held on to take the win with his checkpoint-powered Yokomo car, with Dunn in second, Losi Sr. in third, in a very close, exciting race. They swapped the lead back and forth, but finally Gil Losi Jr. in the middle won the invitational class, with Mike Dunn on the right in second and Gil Losi Sr. in third, in a really close race. It's a very special race when a father and son are on the podium together. Congratulations, guys. RC Modeler Magazine, May 1985. This is a fast-looking model. Don't ask. My article this month was on the annual U.S. Indoor Championships in Cleveland, Ohio. The Norcar Club in Cleveland, Ohio held the 112th Indoor Championships at the Hilton South Hotel. A great deal of thanks goes to Sanyo for again sponsoring the best 112 races worldwide. We had some overseas racers join us this year. From Germany came Christian Kyle. Christian was the top qualifier at the World Championships in Denmark with his associated RC12i car, powered by a Reedy Modified. A week before this Cleveland race, he was at the Red Lobster Classic race in Melbourne, Florida, where he was a top qualifier and won the race. From England came Andy Dobson and Les Pipe from Team Schumacher. Christian Kyle came all the way from Germany to race. He was top qualifier at the World Championships with his associated RC12i car. He visited the Red Lobster Classic race in Florida last week, was TQ, and won the race. Stock class qualifying. Friday had 2 stock qualifying rounds, with one more round on Saturday morning. The stock Igarashi motors were provided by Trinity and were sealed and handed out by the race director and were returned to Tech at night. From the beginning, it looked like it was going to be a duel between Christian Kyle and Terry Rott for top qualifier honors. Terry Rott has been winning everything in sight in the Midwest, and I told you what Christian can do. Kyle turned 44 laps in 8 minutes and 1 second. Then Rott tied him with 44.801. So Kyle went 45.806. Then Rott turned 45.801 to take the TQ spot. Joel and Ralph Birch Jr. turned identical 44.805 followed by Arturo's 44,806. That's getting close. Stock A main. I generally don't say much about the guy in 10th place, but Rick Howard did a fantastic job just getting into the A main. He was driving an RC12i car without the independent front suspension and even without the spring front end. He was using the solid front end, and yet he somehow managed to wheel that car around this semi-off-road track and got it in the main. Incredible. Not to take anything away from Terry Rott or anyone else, because Terry drove as fast as anyone could have to win. But sometimes there's some incredible driving going on in the back of the pack, and nobody knows but the driver himself. Terry Rott won first, Ralph Birch Jr. second, Bud Bartos third, and Arturo Carbonell fourth. Last year, Terry Rott won the modified class, and this year he won the stock class with his associated RC12i car. Terry Rott won the stock class with his associated RC12i car featuring Sanyo batteries and Novak radio. Ralph Birch Jr. took time off from gas cars to race electrics and took a well-deserved second place in the stock class with his associated RC12i car. Bud Bartos from Team Parma is a stock class world champion, and in this race, Bud took third in the stock class. Standing, waiting for the A main, is Ernie Provetti from Trinity with the light blue shirt and white pants, and Tony P., the general manager of Trinity, in the white t-shirt with dark blue pants. The modified A main. This was it. Time for the fast one. The drivers were introduced, pictures were taken, and the cars were lined up. The horn sounded, and everyone punched off. There was a pileup in the first corner, and Bill Jarrett got through to take the lead. Joel was in second, with Bob Light in third. Tony Neisiger passed Bob to take over third. Jarrett held the lead for a few laps, driving super, but Joel was getting closer and closer. Finally, Jarrett moved over and let Joel go by. Jarrett was now in second, but Tony was slowly catching him, and Tony finally caught and passed Jarrett for second place. Now Terry Rott looked like he was really coming on after his bad start. He passed Jarrett and started to close in on Tony when he stuffed himself. Meanwhile, Joel was jetting. He knew Tony wasn't more than 50 feet behind, so he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. But we're all human, and Joel tried to pass at a tight spot and got stuck, and Tony close to within 15 feet. But Joel didn't make any more mistakes and went on for the win with Tony second and Jarek in third. Great race, guys. Last year it was Joel Johnson who won stock class with his Delta car, and this time he won the modified class. Joel is a one-man team. Arturo Carbonell's new prototype front end on his Delta car, which he used and which Joel Johnson used to win the modified class. Art and Joel used a Delta speed control and Sanyo batteries. Tony Neisiger lays claim to the modified class world champion, and at this race he drove his associated RC12i car to a second place finish, with Bill Jarek following in third.